To have faith in God is not a stagnant state, it's a journey. As believers, we should grow in our knowledge of God and His Word. Walk with Alan Cutting and many other believers as we walk the believer's journey.
Well, aloha, and welcome to the Believer's Journey. I want to thank everybody for joining me today. I want to thank everybody who has watched our video, who shared our video. All of you who have not subscribed, please do so. And I want to thank everyone who has subscribed. And I also want to thank all of you who have helped us financially. I want to thank our sponsors, Guerrero CPA, Guerrero Law, and Trade Show Displays for all that you do. Today we have a really interesting program. This is the first time that we've ever recorded this remote, and we're actually live, and I am in Slovenia. I'm with two missionaries who are in Slovenia, Jay and Zina Herman. You can see them there. And today we're going to talk about their ministry in Slovenia as missionaries, and we're going to have a topic today, and we're going to talk about sharing your faith with care, with something that gives us compassion as we do that, and not necessarily directly beating people over the head as we want to preach to them the word. So we're going to talk about that today. So anyway, let's get to our couple who are here, Jay and Zina. Hello.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Yes. Hi. Excited for today.
So anyway, on our website, if anybody goes to our website, you can go to the guest area and you'll see the write-up on Jay and Zina. But I want you to tell us a little bit about yourselves, because the two of you are from two different countries, and you were missionaries in two different countries. One was a natural-born citizen of the country they were a missionary, and one has been transplanted to that, and now you're over into one country together. So tell us your story.
Yeah. So we're both missionaries with Cru, formerly Campus Crusade for Christ. For myself, I got involved with Cru through college when I went to Ohio State University, and just had such a big impact in my life. The Lord used the discipleship there in helping me to learn how to share my faith through evangelism. Just made such a huge impact that by the time I graduated, I said, you know what, Lord, if you could use me in somebody else's life the way that you've used these guys and this in my life, it's the greatest thing that I could do. And so I left the track of architecture and joined with Cru. At the time, I felt led to overseas ministry. And so that led me to our partnership location here in Ljubljana, Slovenia. And I have now been serving here for 10 years.
Yes, and I from Moldova. I'm Moldovan. I didn't grow up knowing about God, but being a student, I met a Cru movement that really showed me more about the Bible and God. So I made the decision to follow God. But also, after I finished college, I just felt like this is the best way to invest my life by helping other students know God the way I did. So I have been working with Cru for like 15, 16 years. But about seven, 8 years ago, we met at some Cru conferences, because when you're single, you love the Lord, God is giving you opportunities to do this in different countries sometimes. So that was the case with us, and we met at a few conferences. We become friends, and 6 years ago we got married, and we decided to move to Slovenia, where we are now.
So I probably met you, Zina, back around 2011, maybe 2012 or 13, but right around that time. So I've known you a lot longer than I've known Jay. And you were part of the group there where they have about, well, maybe even now 70 Cru staff in Moldova, where here in Slovenia, you only have about, between 4 to 8?
Yeah, we have 4 families, so 8 staff here. 6 of which are foreigners, 5 Americans, 1 lovely Moldovan, And then we have 2 local staff Slovenes as well.
So I want to ask you, what is Slovenia like?
Yeah, so Slovenia, when it comes to religion, is 70% identify as Catholic. But for them, it's very much tied to their national heritage, and so I'm Slovene and so I'm Catholic. It doesn't mean anything to them personally. Very few have a personal relationship with God. In fact, just recently, the church published an article where they found that there are 1.2 million people that identify as Catholic, but less than 100,000 even come to church once a month. And so very few people are even practicing their faith. Slovenia's a small country here in Central Europe. Our neighbors are Italy, Austria, Hungary, and Croatia. Only 2 million people in the whole country. And so it's quite small on a global scale. And besides the 70% Catholic, there's only about 2,000 Protestants in the entire country. And so for most people, you're either Catholic or you're atheist, and they really have no idea of any other forms of faith beyond Catholicism. And so, yeah, that's kind of a little bit of the religious landscape here in Slovenia.
Okay. Zina, let me ask you, the transition from Moldova to Slovenia, the type of work and the work that you did there and the work that you do here, what is the transition like? We've talked to several Moldovan missionaries on our program in the past. Of course, all of them are still there, but you're going to branch out into a different country and a different whole. I don't know. It's an atmosphere. Tell us, how hard has it been for the transition, and how different is it?
Well, as all the transitions, it's not always comfortable, right? It takes you out of your comfort zone. For me personally, I notice a difference between how open people are in Moldova and open spiritually here. People, yes, we don't see, people coming to know the Lord every single day or every single week, but are more open to know more about God, to have a conversation about spiritual things, like honestly, deeply. Here, you need more time to get them talk about or like share about an experience they had with God, or like their true questions. And, like I just felt like I can just approach people the way I worked and approached them with them in Moldova. I had to change some things. So this was was rough for me to kind of, okay, I have to learn a new way to talk about God. I have to learn a new way of caring for these people. And plus I had to learn a new language, which is very important for Slovenes. So it was different. And, of course, I feel like in Moldova, people still know a little bit about the Bible, right? Like they don't know a lot, but there was something there that we could connect with. But here I have a feeling people don't know what the teaching of Jesus are about, or like they don't have a lot of Bible education. Not everyone, but mostly. Just few people will have, really know what what the Bible is about, or some information about the books of the Bible. So yeah, I had to learn the culture to understand where are these people spiritually, what are the values of the culture, and how do you approach people? Because the way I did it in Moldova, it doesn't work here. So it took a little bit. I didn't arrive yet. I'm still learning, but that was a challenge for me. Yeah.
And you guys have now 2 boys since you've been married.
Yeah.
And so that takes, and since they're little, that takes a lot on your time. And it looks like I've been in your home now for, actually Susan's with me, so we've been in your home now for 4 days, and we can see there's a lot for you guys to do, a lot to be busy with, sharing with people your church people you meet with, as well as your children that you're taking care of. Jay, tell me, what is the largest or the biggest thing you work with that is maybe frustrating, or the things that is difficult for you to reach here in Slovenia?
That's a great question. I think the biggest issue, which I'm sure people see and experience across Europe, especially, and really the whole West, is just that extreme spiritual apathy. Here in Slovenia, a lot of people, they think that they've heard and seen it all in the church, like, oh, I know who Jesus is, right? He did this thing, or, everybody has their perspective on him. Nobody is particularly surprised if you walk up and want to ask them about Jesus. But there's no hunger, there's no desire, there's no openness or really curiosity to learn more or to really experience something new. For most people, they think, oh, I've been there, done that. I'm really good. I don't need to learn anymore. I've arrived. And that's just makes me extremely sad, because for so many of them, they are believing lies, or they really are completely off base of what the truth of the gospel is, and of who Jesus is, and of what he's offering to them. They have no idea. And yet the enemy has blinded them. And so they think in their contentment that, no, I've seen and heard it all. But beyond that, there is still a spiritual hunger. People are open to spiritual things. It's amazing. You'll talk with people here, students, and ask them, tell me a little bit about your spiritual life or your worldview. And so many of them have this kind of charcuterie board of beliefs where, it's like, oh, I believe in a little bit of reincarnation. I believe, we're probably people with spirits. We're probably not just physical beings, and a little bit of this. And they form their own platter of beliefs, and they think like, this is what I'm going to stake my life on. And it amazes me. I think, guys, so of the thousands of years of human life, you think that you have pieced together the keys to the world based on your, charcuterie board of beliefs, and you're content to just live that way, not looking or wondering, hey, maybe I don't have it all figured out. Maybe there is something more to the world. And so overcoming that spiritual apathy and that just, I think I've heard it all, I'm good, I think is a definite challenge.
I will also add that there is people are busy with just living life. The focus is on their careers, to get there, to have this job, to have this business. They're focused on having this amazing vacation, on just enjoying life so much. There is not a lot of Slovenia. It's still a growing country. Many things that people want to be different, but not a lot of very big crisis. So people are just, living their life, enjoying life.
I'm wondering though if that part of life is almost true everywhere. That's the way it is in the United States. Mm-hmm. I imagine in many countries, if not all countries that are around, probably have that same problem.
Yeah.
In fact, Jesus is interesting when he mentioned that in the end days, it'll be like the times of Noah, where people are just, living life and not paying attention to what was going to happen. And when I look around me, that's kind of what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think another challenge here that maybe is a bit more unique is, Slovenes, they're relatively content with few very deep relationships. There was a study I saw a few years ago that said the average number of Slovenes has something like 4 to 5 friends. And that's not like best friends. That's just like friendships, period. From if you did that study in the States where I'm from, I can't even imagine what it would find. It would certainly be over, 40, 50 people that the average person would consider friends. Whereas here, I've described them a bit like an onion, where it's a very hard shell. And so, but if you can pierce into that and you can really get on the inside, they're the friendships that they hold most dear, they're really ride or die with those people. But to actually get in and to enter through those layers to get into somebody's heart, to develop a true, deep, and meaningful relationship with them can be really hard. People aren't particularly interested in getting to know other people, or once they have their kind of core group of friends, they're just content. They're not looking for a new group to join. They're not looking for new relationships or hobbies. They kind of have their things and they stick to them. And so, that can be really hard to then break through that and to enter into a new relationship. I had a friend here who said, I went to the States and everybody was so kind. They smiled at you on the street and they held doors open for you. It's amazing. And for me, I was like, oh, that's like kind of the baseline level of kindness, that's like even unthought of in the States. Whereas here, people aren't walking down the street smiling at each other. People aren't really saying much hellos to each other. We've been at the park with our kids and you'll see two parents standing right next to each other, pushing their kids on the swings, but they won't say a single word to each other. There's no small talk, just kind of people are content with themselves and where they're at, and that's about it. And so it can be hard to, break through that mold and to say, no, we're people who believe in engaging with others. We're people who really want to develop new and friendships and relationships with other people.
So one of the things that I'm doing out here tomorrow, we're having a marriage seminar where I'm going to be talking about the art of marriage. And so there'll be several people coming here for this. So what are the challenges in marriage alone and in the relationship factor? Because we've talked about this at length. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very interesting for our audience to hear this and know what's happening in Slovenia.
Yeah. I mean, marriage here, I think, again, like a lot of maybe Western countries, is in a really, really dire state. The average, I think Slovenia is like 4th or 5th in all of Europe as to the percentage of kids born outside of marriage. It's more than 60% of kids here in Slovenia are born to relationships outside of marriage. And those relationships are long-term relationships. You'll talk with people who have been together for 8, 10, even more years. And yet they just have no desire to get married, to take that step, whether it's, they don't really believe in the religious aspect of marriage. There's not really much of a government incentive through taxes or otherwise to get married. And so they're just kind of content in being together and not taking that step and to make that covenant between them and the Lord in marriage. And so, yes, marriage at a baseline is just not really thought of very highly. But then on top of that, you have relationship factors here in Slovenia. Slovenia has a very high rate of alcoholism and domestic violence. And so even for those who are in relationships, whether it's married or not, the home life could be very different than maybe even what people around them may think. And so, there's a lot of real deep challenges in just the concept of marriage and not really having a desire to take that step. And then even within the relationships and within the homes where very often alcoholism, abuse, emotional disconnectivity because, you're just checked out. And so, relationships and marriage is definitely a huge need and challenge with people here in Slovenia.
Do you have anything to add to that, Zina?
No, I agree. We notice the same. It's just, maybe what I will add is true. That's the culture. People don't seem to be see this as a problem, or like getting married is just a piece of paper, or what is this about, so just like this low vision, low opinion of how precious it is to commit to someone that you already have kids with, right? And be there for this person is just it's surprising to me, for sure.
Do you think, just off the wall question, do you think that maybe people's feel or the urgency of commitment to God might be of the same caliber of commitment to marriage? comes from
Maybe
the
there
same
is a connection there. Yeah. Maybe there is a connection there, right? Like if you were to value what God is speaking about marriage, you will leave your marriage. You will start your marriage from a different, with a different foundation than just let's just be together and have our kids and this is enough for us. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Yeah.
Okay, so what I want you guys to tell me and tell our audience is, what is your role? I know that when I'm in Moldova, I know that there's all these different people in staff, and there's like several different groups that are separated. One does teachers, and one might do family ministry, one might do, church ministry, one might do sports. Here, obviously, you can't have 15 different groups. So what is it that the roles that are happening in Slovenia, and what are your roles?
Yeah. So we all are working with kind of, I would say, most closely aligned with Crew's church planting ministry. Crew's vision worldwide is movements everywhere so that everyone knows somebody who follows Jesus. And as we were thinking about that vision statement for us here in Slovenia, we did many years of campus ministry, but with coronavirus, when that began, the university was closed for 2 years. And so we couldn't just walk on campus and talk with people. And so we really had to step back and reevaluate, okay, what are we doing? What are we going to be? And we were thinking about that statement, movements everywhere, so everyone knows somebody who follows Jesus. And we realized, if we want to see that in Slovenia, that's not going to happen through a group of students here at the campus. For Slovenes, I already mentioned about the very few relationships. A lot of them are connected to their homes. Generational living is a very common thing here. You'll have grandma living in one level of the house, mom and dad living in the next, and then the kids living in the next. And as you get married and time goes on, you just kind of cycle through. And so people stay very closely connected to their homes. It's not like this moving around like you have in the States. And so we realized, if we want to reach everyone in Slovenia, we can't do it from here in Ljubljana. We need to reach them out there in their homes, in their villages. Slovenia has one of the most rural populations in all of Europe. So many people are living in these small towns, and that's really their center of their life and their relationships. And so we developed our vision, which is Slovenia is divided into 212 different municipalities. And so our vision is to see a group of people in every single municipality who are reading the word, applying it to their daily life, and sharing it with others. That's really what we want to see here. And that is going to be how we're going to see movements everywhere, so everyone knows somebody who follows Jesus. Right now, there are only Protestant churches in 30 of those 212 different municipalities. And so we have a long way to go. And so our roles here are we're just out there engaging with people in our networks and engaging with different Christians and people from across the country who would share in that vision and say, you know what, I would love to see a group like that. I would love to see, you could even call it a church like that here in my municipality, a home church where people are getting together, reading the word, applying it, sharing and helping other people around them, making an impact in the community for Christ. And if we could see those groups begin to sprout up across the country, I really believe that they can transform this whole place. And so that's our vision, that's our roles, and that's a little bit about what we're doing.
Okay. Now, you're in the capital city, Ljubljana. You said there's about 2 million people in the country. What is the population here in the capital?
Yeah, it's about 300,000 people live here regularly. But because of the size of the country and a lot of people come here on a weekly basis for work or for school, high school and university. And so I think they say that on an average day, the Ljubljana can actually grow to over 700,000 people through work and school. And so the stable population here is 300,000, but throughout the day, the city can more than double that in size based on the number of people coming here for work and school and heading back home every night. So,
So Zina, it's got to be really different for you. You are a mother that takes care of two little, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Yes.
But however, I also see Jay taking care of, the children as well. So tell me how you see what you do in your role in Cru as a missionary and as a mother taking care of these children, and share that with us.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I really, really love being a mom. I think our boys give us a lot to do because they're very active, and raising them. It's not just it's not just putting food on their tables and make sure they have clothes. It's a lot of work if we and I want to do a good job at that as God calls me. But I also feel like, God put this desire in me to do something else. And I very often question myself, asking myself, what can I do that is significant? Like, I know I'm a mom. I'm really happy with that. But there is some, opportunities, some time that I can, invest in expanding God's kingdom. What can I do? And while my kids were very small, very babies, and the pandemic, God led me towards coaching, and I'm a certified coach. I have over 250 hours of practice. And in our organization, I serve that staff. I train a group every year. There is a new group of people, and I am part of the training team with staff, Cru staff from all over Europe, and not only. And like I call it like a nap time ministries. Like while my kids take a 2-hour nap, I can manage have a few meetings, or before they wake up, I can squeeze a meeting to just do something with the gifts that God put in me. And at the same time, I help train other staff that do evangelism. They're leaders, they're country leaders, they're in different ministries that I cannot do at this point, having little ones. So that brought a lot of significance and joy in my life, and truly improved and deepened my relationships with how I listen well to my family, to my husband, to my teammates, with the questions I ask. So that's one way I do this. I serve, but also, like having kids, it is limiting your time in a way. Like I'm not like a single staff being able to serve 100% of my times, but it opened up some opportunities. I get to go to parks, and our kids play with some other kids, and I'm just like connecting with a mom from Albania, or like just with a Slovene young family, or like my oldest one goes now to preschool, and there is another group of people that I can meet, and slowly I'm trying to befriend some parents, and like my passion is still doing discipleship and serve people. It just has a different way, a different way to serve that, or a different way to connect people with the people, just with other people that are in the same kind of season of life. So that's like very generally, this is how my life is, and I try to be faithful about that. Like I have some goals to every day, every week, to invite someone over that don't know Jesus, or to make sure I go to the parks when the weather is good with my kids, and like I'm scheduling dinner around ahead of time, so we can be at the park for at least an hour, so we can meet people, meet kids that and befriend them. So that's kind of how my ministry looks now.
That's really interesting. That's actually really kind of neat, because you're not out there on the corner, with your Bible yelling and screaming at people who walk by. Instead, you're meeting people, and you're inviting them over, and you're befriending them, and you're doing it a whole way that people would rather be introduced to the gospel or to people than to be I remember when I lived on Maui, whenever I go to Lahaina, there was a man with his wife and his 2 kids, and he'd be literally yelling across the street. Everybody was walking by, yelling out sermons or the scripture while his wife and 2 kids sat there on the corner. And so I thought, he's not going to reach anybody by doing this way. So I think what you have there is really good, the fact that you connect with people to connect these relationships and then invite them over and then go with the gospel. I think that's a really, really admirable way to do this. And
Yeah.
you're finding ways to do things as you're put in a whole different area of life than you were before.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And, as we're encouraging and finding people and training them to be able to share their faith with the people around them, if we want to be good coaches and trainers and encouragers in that, we need to be living that lifestyle ourselves as well. And so, as we're telling people, hey, with the people around you, you need to be engaging with them about your faith. That means we too need to be engaging with the people around us at our faith, whether it's at the preschool or at the park, or just walking around the city. And so, as we're in coaching and encouraging and training others to do that, we too need to be practitioners in the oikos that God has placed us in here. And so that's what we try to do.
And I could be a testimony of the fact that I've seen people come over here and you go to coffee or you have them for dinner and so forth. So I see that interaction, which I think is really, really good. So that's neat. Is there anything else about your ministry here in Ljubljana with Cru or on your own or however you're working your ministry with the Lord? Is there anything you want to share that we haven't shared yet?
Yeah. So, the way that we're doing thing here is a little bit different based on some of our observations on culture here that we've already talked about, and also just kind of the big shift in the world from modernism to postmodernism, right? For postmodern people, friendships and community are really important, right? For them, experiences are important and reliable. People are desiring to seek the mystical or the unknown. We have all these ghost stories or murder stories and things like this, right? People are engaging in these other forms of mysticism and such. For them, they're not looking for absolute truth. In fact, most postmoderns don't even believe that absolute truth is a thing. And so just telling them, Jesus Christ died for your sins and rose again, that message doesn't really engage with them anymore. And so as we've been seeking to engage with people about our faith and train others to do so as well, we've kind of shifted towards a simple model that we call My Friends. It's been developed here in Europe. But the core part of it breaks down very simply to share, experience, connect, and release. And so share is sharing with others how you experience God. And so that's not like your testimony of when you first received Jesus, something that could have happened 10, 15, 20 years ago. That's not relevant to a person here today. What people need to hear is, how are you experiencing God on a daily basis? How are you experiencing God this week? Maybe it's something you read in the Bible hey, I read this and it really made me think about this. Maybe it's how you've seen an answered prayer. For us as parents, we've gotten to share with other parents, hey, my kid was really sick and we just got to sit down and pray with them. We asked Jesus to heal them. And the next morning they were feeling way better. And we are so thankful to him for that. That's a message that relates and resonates to all parents. They think, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. And it could be other things as well, of ways that you are experiencing God on a daily basis. Be sharing those with the people around you. Everybody's sharing their experiences, right? Instagram, one of the most popular platforms in the world, is entirely about sharing experiences. Oh, look at this beautiful place. Look at this amazing food. People are constantly sharing these kinds of things. And so what if instead we shared how we experience God? And as we're sharing those experiences, that we want to then invite them to have an experience as well, as they think, oh, this is kind of interesting. And as they're sharing things with us, we can say, hey, would you mind if I prayed with you right now? And so we'll offer to pray with people and to say, hey, you just shared with me that, you're feeling really stressed about this exam coming up. Could I just pray right now, 30 seconds to Jesus to make an impact? And if they say yes, we'll say, okay, and we'll pray together with them, and ask them, okay, has anybody ever prayed with you before? How did that feel? And then we'll follow up with them. Hey, how did it go? Did you feel better about your exam, or did your kid get better, or whatever the thing that we prayed about is? And so that's offering them to then have an experience with God. And as he answers that prayer in their life, then we want to connect them to him and say, hey, that didn't happen. You didn't feel better because of me. That was because of Jesus. And he's coming close to you, and he's trying to show you that he's there and that he loves you. And so we're connecting them with him. And then finally, we're releasing them back out. Hey, why don't you go talk, just like I shared my experience with you, you could share your experience with others as well. And what we found is that as people do have genuine experiences with God, the sharing part, the releasing and sharing it part comes natural, right? Because if they really did pray and feel better, they would think, oh, I would want to tell somebody about that, because that was kind of a unique and radical thing. And so as we're doing those 4 things with people, we're seeing God use that to develop little communities then of people who the spiritual interest then can grow. If you just walk up to somebody and say, hey, do you want to read the Bible with me? They're just going to say no, because that doesn't feel like it engages with their felt needs at the moment. But if you give them the space and help them to, oh, that's what it means to follow Jesus. Oh, Jay read his Bible and thought about something, or Jay was praying and he experienced something. As they see what it looks like to follow Jesus on a daily life, it makes curiosity, it makes openness. And then as they're praying and experiencing that for themselves, that openness just grows and grows. And so that's kind of our ministry model here. And that's what we're doing to help people to find spiritually open people around them so that they can start these groups in their own municipalities all across the country. And that's what we're applying in our own daily life, in our interactions at the park, in our interactions at the preschool, and so on.
Good. Last thing I want to ask you guys. So, Jay, you're from Ohio in the United States, and you're from Zina, you're from Moldova. So when you go home to visit home, where do you go? How do you, when do you go?
I mean, for us, in our entire marriage, it's been here in Slovenia. This is our home in a lot of ways. But, home for us, of course, is more about the people than the place. And so Zina's family, and when we're with them in Moldova, that is our home. My family in Ohio, when we're with them, that is home. But for us and our family, we've been here in Slovenia our whole time. And so I think our heart will always be here with our boys.
But overall, we go every 2 years home. This is our
to the
States, to Jay's home every 2, and now mine every 2 years, to visit the supporters and family. And last time we went to Moldova was last summer. But I also like when my parents get a little bit more extended time than we can spend there and come visit us. So every Christmas or New Year, they come stay with us for at least a week. And we just really enjoying seeing them at least once a year. And Jay's mom comes to visit us every other year when we are not going to America. So it is not long, and we would love for family to live closer to us. When you have kids, it's different when family doesn't live close to you. But we understand this is the price you pay for a calling.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it is so good to hear about your story. It really is. You guys are doing an amazing job here. It's got to be difficult in a country that's difficult. So I want to encourage everyone, if you to look down and we have Jay and Zina's email. If you want to write them and ask some questions, there's across the screen every so often it's gone across. If you're interested in supporting them, you can support them as well. If you can ask them about their ministry, I'm sure they can send you a link to a page or send you a newsletter. And I'm sure you guys would send people newsletters, whether they support you financially or not, just to see what you're doing. and they put out a really nice newsletter, and I think it'd be really good. If you go to our website, you can see on the guest page, we also have everything there. We have a little write-up, and we have their email, as well as we have the link there. There's a little picture of Crew, and you can click on that, and it goes right to their page to give them to them if they want to. And I think that's they're really worth investing in. So I just want to let everybody know that. So right now I want to change gears here and go to our topic, which is about sharing your faith with care. And Zina, I want you to explain that, because we all need to understand what you mean by with care, sharing your faith.
Well, we just discovered, realized people need a little bit of education or knowledge way before they will be ready to meet Jesus, right? Or open the door to Jesus. And us showing care in specific ways, tangible ways, as long with words, right? Like something about God, something about the Bible, something we are learning, something we experience in our own life, like Jay mentioned, give them an experience. And we noticed that this works better than just, okay, let's have a conversation about Jesus. Where do you go? Where do you think you're going to go when you die, right? This doesn't go here. And actually last week I had a conversation with a new believer, and she's like, I was just so excited to talk with my friend that I know for years, and she listened to me. But when I was telling her about, how important is life after death, she was like, I don't care about that. I want to live my life, think about my vacation. Just this life, it's enough, I don't care about that. So we were talking that people need a taste or something for us to reflect God in their life in tangible ways, or even messages about God, snippets about the gospel way before they're ready to have a conversation about eternal life, forgiveness of sin, starting a friendship with God. And we talked, as a team, we talk about in what ways we can serve our community. And we talk about neighbors. We talk about people in our neighborhood, in our building. We live in a apartments building. So we have at least 4 neighbors here that see us every single day. And we had to sit down as a family and think about what are some practical ways we can show care and love to our neighbors. And one thing we did last year around Christmas is we baked 300 cookies, gingerbread cookies. Some of them were shaped in a dinosaur with a dinosaur cookie cutter, because that's what Ari chose, our first son. So we knocked on doors and had a bag of cookies for everyone. And lots of people that opened the doors like, oh, here's some cookies from us too, or like, oh, there you go, this is so nice to actually meet you, because we are saying we are your neighbors, this is our family. All 4 of us went to give the cookies. And we discovered actually there is Ari had some classmates just across the street. We didn't know they lived there, and we befriended them and discovered another couple that have older kids, but also like a cross-cultural marriage. So we befriended them too. So that was a very one time we did that, gave us at least 2 connections to develop, to people to be friends. And we sat down as a family and we start to pray. We have a prayer calendar that we go back from time to time, and with our kids, with Ari, with our oldest, who do we want to pray for? And we choose a teammate, a classmate, or a teammate from our team, especially if there is a classmate from Ari's class that, did something bad or said a hurtful word. We pray, where we take parents and families, all the 18 families, we take them one by one and pray for them. Very often I bake cookies or do something and just knock on the door of our neighbors and here's some banana bread. How are you guys doing? Or, stuff that, I don't have to find babysitters to just go out, but it's part of life, and usually I have a kid with me while I'm doing these things. It's just like a lifestyle, and we have a few friends. We're doing a Bible study with them, even if they're not yet believers. And every week we ask this question: what is a need you have or someone in your life, and how can we help that need? So we can, show care and love right now, even if it's like an idea of a doctor they need to go resolve this pain in your ear or something, or maybe just prayer for this relationship with the family that is hard to just be better, and so on. And we prioritize, like we try to prioritize if there is birthdays, to go and support and talk with parents. And like, and parents here, they also, they can feel lonely, staying home with kids. So I am trying, like, to ask good questions, for us to plan play dates and just be with the people that don't know Jesus yet, and be present and loving them by listening, or so we can understand where they are in their relationship, in their journey, their spiritual journey, and uh, lots of this time doesn't have to be planning out, going out of your way. Is just taking the opportunities that are already planted in our lives, just prioritizing them, making sure we, when we drop off our of Ari, like, we not in a hurry, we reserve a few minutes to talk, to notice parents, to befriend people, so we can know how they can, how we can help them, how can we pray for them. So yeah. And as a family, we all the time asking, so this week, who do we want to invite over from people that don't know Jesus, and sometimes, works because people say no sometimes, and sometimes, we are always looking for someone that we can love by hosting them, getting to know them. Everyone gets a little bit more happy with some food and some dessert. So we notice this type of love, right? Like, is a little bit like, it goes against the culture because everyone has their families and their relationships, but people notice and appreciate the invitation very often. Yeah.
Jake, have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, Jesus says they will know you're my disciples by your love for one another. And so I think for us, if we want to be people who are loving the world, and if we want to show who Jesus is, I think it starts by love and caring for the people around us and engaging beyond the walls of the church, engaging with the community. The early church, they lived as one giant community. It says in Acts, they held everything in common. And I'm sure that the way that they were living was so radically countercultural that it really stood out. In fact, there's a little excerpt of a book here I would love to share. It's called Surprise the World by Michael Frost, and he's talking about exactly this. He's talking about the early church in comparison with the Roman Empire, and it says, the early church surprised the empire with their unlikely lifestyle. These ordinary believers devoted themselves to sacrificial acts of kindness. They loved their enemies, forgave their persecutors. They cared for the poor and fed the hungry. In the brutality of life under Roman rule, they were most stunningly different people than anyone had ever seen. Indeed, their influence was so surprising that the 4th century Emperor Julian feared that they might take over the empire. And it goes on and it shares a little bit about what he was saying. Later, it says, Julian was concerned that the Christian acts of hospitality and philanthropy were winning too many of his subjects. He decided to launch an offensive against them by mobilizing his officials and the pagan priests to outlove the Christians. And it describes a little bit of what he tried to do. And then finally it says, perhaps not surprisingly, Julian's new social program utterly failed. He couldn't motivate the pagan priests or the Roman officials to care that much for the poor. He failed to realize that the Christians were filled with the Holy Spirit of love and motivated by his grace. I just love that picture and the idea that the Christians were so hospitable, so loving, so caring that the Emperor of Rome saw it as a threat. That's how dedicated their community was to loving others. And it was, in fact, a threat, of course, as we know eventually. And I wonder today, what does it look like for us to outlove the world? What does it look like to us to outlove the people in our kids' school? What would it look like for Christians here in Ljubljana, Slovenia, and across the world to be outloving anyone else? And that surprising kindness and grace and caring for others, I think, is really what would soften the ground and make people think, oh, okay, wow, maybe there is something to this. We see Jesus do so many acts of just incredible grace and kindness for people around him. And so we want to be people who are doing that as well.
You know, and I think that God is such a neat God, because he gives us the same idea in his own behavior. He doesn't just tell us go love, or like Jesus says, you know, love one another. They did it first. I know that, for example, in the Old Testament, when God gave the Ten Commandments, before he gave the Ten Commandments, he delivered them from, you know, the Egyptians, from oppression. And then after he delivered them, then he gave them the 10 statements. Then he says, because I've done this, have no other God before me. And Jesus did the same thing. He says, you know, no man takes my life. I give it freely. And then he did give it freely. And so they showed the idea of what love was about before they even asked from us. And I think that's really important. Even Adam and Eve, he gave them the garden, in fact, he gave them the dominion of the world, and then said, and don't eat from that tree. It's just like he gives of himself and then says, okay, now go do likewise. And I think so it's not really hard for us to see that. And yet, you know what, Jay, in today's world, we're blinded to that. We're so stuck on ourselves and what we're about that we don't see our neighbors' problems, our people's hurts. Like you were talking about, Zina, talking about to somebody and befriending them and asking them if they have something to pray about for them. It's something I think that maybe, and not in just Slovenia, all over, we've lost that sense of compassion.
Yeah. If we want people to receive Jesus as their Savior, which of course is the ultimate goal, we need to show them not only what that means in our daily lives, but we need to show them Jesus. And what that looks like is loving them first. And so just simple acts of loving and caring for the people around them, I think shows them, oh, that's who Jesus is. Oh, that's what it means to be a Christian. I thought it just meant that you went on church, you know, Sunday once a month, or maybe just for Christmas and Easter, and you sat down and stood up and that's it. Oh, no, it means that, you know, you're engaging with other people around you. You're asking them, oh, what's going on in your life? Oh, can I help you out with that? Oh, they're bringing me a meal when my kids are sick. Oh, they're out there picking up trash in the street to try to make a difference, or cleaning up graffiti. You know, if these are the kinds of things that we're doing, that's showing, not just, you know, with words, you know, it says to be not only hearers of the word, but doers. And I think that works in the inverse as well. And so if we want them to hear the message of the gospel, sometimes we need to do the message of the gospel first in their life, and showing them that kindness and helping them out so that they see and understand, oh, that's what they're talking about. And then when they experience it, we can say, well, this is where it comes from. Here's the source. Here's the Jesus. And they'll be so much more receptive to that. And so I think those acts of kindness are actually a way, as you said, of sharing your faith, and preparing the groundwork for somebody to understand this is what it means. Yeah.
And, you know, even looking at Jesus' life, I mean, here he is walking the seashore, the seaside or whatever. He's in the Mount of Olives, or he's other places, and people are following him by the thousands. And all of a sudden they sit down, everybody sits down, he looks around. And so instead of starting off with a sermon, he says, these people have to be hungry. So he's looking at their needs. You know, it's the same thing when Jesus looked down from the cross. I mean, here he is dying on the cross, and he says, okay, John, here's, you know, take Mary, your mother, treat her as your mother, Mary, treat him as your son, take care of each other. I mean, in all areas, a guy let down from the rooftop. here he is preaching, and this guy comes down. He stops his preaching. How many pastors do that? He stops his preaching and heals this guy. I mean, he just, and even at the wedding at Cana, he made wine from water. There wasn't any reason to do it, and there wasn't any message that came from it. His mom just asked him, "Hey, can you do this, please?" And he did it. And he's like, he looked beyond and saw the needs and reached out because he could and met the need.
Yeah.
And I think we need to learn from Jesus. We need to learn from his example, because that's exactly what changed the world. And if we want our world to be changed, we need to see the needs of the people where they are today, and not bypass that just to look at, well, where they can be tomorrow. We need to see where they are today if we're going to reach them today.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, other stories, look at the demoniac, you know. Jesus first heals him of his affliction, something they tried to put him in chains. He would not be withheld. They locked him out in the graves because nobody knew how to deal with him. Jesus comes to him. He doesn't just, you know, declare, "Hey, receive me." He, boom, commands the legion out of him, and the man experiences Jesus. He experiences his power, and he says, "Okay, sign me up. I want to follow you." And Jesus then tells him, "Hey, you're not going to follow me. You need to go back to your town and tell others about what I've done for you." And when Jesus returns to the area, there are many people that have believed because of the man's testimony.
I think
the woman
there's
at the well. Sorry, go ahead.
I think there's so many examples. I mean, even
Yeah.
Elisha with a woman with the pots, and it says, gather a bunch of pots, and he pours oil in, and all of a sudden it's like, go sell it. And so he saw the need. And the woman who had the pot of oil, who it never ran out. I mean, they see the need and they meet the need.
Yeah.
And I think as ministers, that really is what we need to really pay attention to.
Yeah.
Jesus did it. Many of the prophets of the Old Testament did it. God did it in the Old Testament. And it's just important that we take that up and realize there are needs out there presently that we need to touch. And if like you said, the people in Slovenia, they're not going to listen to, "Hey, you know, let me teach you about Jesus or read you the Bible." You're not meeting anything for them presently. And once you can meet other things, it's not until you do that you can actually engage in the spiritual things.
Yeah. If we want people to enter the kingdom, I think today most people need to first experience the kingdom. And we're the ambassadors of that kingdom. And so if we, by sharing the love of Jesus, if we, by caring and serving and living sacrificially as he did and called us to do, that gives them a taste to experience the kingdom and to say, "Hey, maybe there is something more here than what I thought," or, "Hey, maybe there is something that I should learn more about." And then we can trust the Holy Spirit and God to cultivate that hunger and to draw them into his word, to where they can discover, "Oh, this is actually who Jesus was. All of my life, I thought that he was one thing. I was blind, but now I see." But the first step of them seeing, I think today, for a lot of the Western world at least, is to experience. And so we need to be ambassadors who are helping the people out there, not in the church walls, because they're not coming into the church walls. We need to be out there in the communities, giving them a taste of the kingdom, so that then they will come and say, "Hey, I want more." And so, yeah.
Zina, we have a really short period of time. Do you have something to say?
Maybe just like a highlight from what I'm learning right now is to just look where you're planted and see the opportunities God puts in your life to connect with people, reflect Jesus, serve there. Even if you're, you know, a mom with two young ones, I think that's kind of what I feel like God is teaching me right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would just encourage people, you know, look around at the people around you who are far from God, and ask yourself this week, pray and ask God, reveal to me, who can I just bless this week? Who can I bless? Whether it's just making a meal and bringing it over to them, offering to buy them a coffee, or listening to them. "Hey, what's going on? I saw this. Hey, can I help you out? You're moving." Look around and say, "Okay, who can I help experience the kingdom, or give an experience of the kingdom to this week?" and trust God that if you're faithfully doing that with people around you, they'll see God in you, and that'll create that desire in them. And so there can be so many ways that we can love and care for the person around us. So I would just encourage you, today, pray and ask God, hey, who can I care for this week? What can I do? And then just take those simple steps, and trust Him for the greater results in the end.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us today. I really do appreciate it. So everybody, you've heard words from Slovenia, and please read about them, look them up. And if you have any questions, you can either write in the comments down below on our YouTube channel, or if you have questions for Jay or Zina, you can write them, and their email is right there. But thank you for joining us today. Do share our video. We really do appreciate that. But everybody, you have a wonderful day and you have a wonderful week. Aloha.